Jess, I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Oh my goodness. I've done a bit too much today. Okay, we're going to do this again, 30 seconds in. Hopefully, you've only just joined us because I had my microphone on mute. But anyway, here I am, and here's Poppy, and we're here for Lifting the Lid Festival, as you may have gathered by now, and we are spreading the word, all things lifting the lid, because we think it's great. And Poppy is here for a very, very particular and important reason. And I'm going to tell you, first of all, when you can find her, Saturday the 15th, 11:15 a.m. 11:15
Yeah.
a.m.
Yes.
Greenwich Mean
Yeah.
Time. So Poppy Walker, and the session title is Tiny Lives, Big Impact. And it's changing the way that we talk about, respond to, and honour baby loss. So if you are listening to this and this is a really, really sensitive subject for you right now, please don't stay. And you can always look on the programme and find out what it's about and when. So this is the session description, and I just think it's so great. And I'll read out Poppy's bio as well, so you can understand where she's coming from and what the more formal organisation is that she works with. So Tiny Lives, Big Impact explores how we talk about, respond to, and honour baby loss in today's society. Drawing on her work with bereaved families, Poppy invites us to open conversations around grief, challenge the taboos that surround loss, and consider how we can all create more compassionate, inclusive communities. This talk calls for a cultural shift, one where baby loss is not hidden or silenced, but acknowledged as part of our shared human experience. I don't know many people that would be tuning into Lifting the Lid who wouldn't agree with that. So Poppy Walker, this glorious person, the children's celebrant, which I'm extremely pleased to hear about because I didn't know the children's celebrant existed, and I do feel very powerfully, personally, that that is a particular calling I do. It's very distinct from working with adults, I think. I've never said that to anyone, but I do believe that. So I'm really, really pleased that you're there. That's very, very particular. Okay, so founder of Daphne and Friends, CIC, and it's dedicated to creating spaces where grief and baby loss are acknowledged and honoured with compassion. Daphne and Friends CIC supports families through pregnancy, baby, and child loss, creating safe spaces, community, and training that bring compassion and understanding to grief. I cannot even begin to imagine how many people need to hear your story, Poppy. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you introduce yourself on your own terms and just get across what you need people to know about your session, why you're doing it, and your message.
Oh, thank you, Jess. That was so nice of you to read that out, and it's lovely to be here too. So yeah, I'm Poppy, and I am first of all, I'm a proud mum. I've got a little boy called Felix who is 6, and my youngest, a little girl called Caris, is 3. And then I also have Daphne, and she's my middle child. And if she was here, she'd be 4 years old. Um, we sadly had a stillbirth with Daphne at 35 weeks pregnant, and it was absolutely devastating. It was something that was unexpected. It's We hadn't even considered as a family that that was a possibility, that babies died, that you didn't uh, end your pregnancy with taking a baby home in the car seat through the hospital. And it really shifted everything in my life. It's a point in my life where there's the before Daphne point and the after Daphne. It's a mark in the sand, where there's a before and an after time. Um, and from losing Daphne, I did lots of crazy things. I quit my job. I reevaluated what was important in my life, and I also struggled with how I was coping with grief. I felt very isolated after losing Daphne, and um, I created the network that I needed because it wasn't there. Now, in our local area in East London, if anyone's knows East London, we're in Walthamstow and Waltham Forest in North East London. Um, the support I found was patchy. it wasn't the kind of support that I felt I needed when I did find it. And I needed something that felt more like a community. And so that's what we created. I had to go to support sessions with my toddler in tow because because Daphne wasn't my first, and I found it really hard. And he wasn't necessarily always welcome either, because a grieving parent may not want to see a little child. It reminds them of what they are missing if it's their first that they've lost. So it all started with a play group that I said. I put a little message on Facebook saying, "Hey, I've got some toys and I'd love to meet some other people in a similar position." And I was surprised when people said yes and came. And I was even more surprised with the amount of messages that said, "I've been in that situation. My kids are big now, but I'd have loved that." So from there, it's grown into a really beautiful community of bereaved parents who've lost early pregnancies, they've had terminations for medical reasons, stillbirths, all sorts of reasons for losing their baby, right through to children who are older who've died on hospice care as well. So it's a real mix of families, but the thing that unites everyone is that journey. And that's being that support network to each other, which is really beautiful.
I feel a bit speechless. I just feel winded because I'm thinking of all the stories I've heard in my life. My mother's stories, my sister's stories. I mean, there's all kinds of stories around people who've had abortions when they didn't want to as well. And then I'm thinking of just like, there's so much, you said it, taboo. And you did say to me earlier that you think there is even more taboo around grief and baby loss. And I think
Yeah.
that might be true. I'm sure it's true. You wouldn't be saying it if it weren't. But I've kind of, even not having had children, have come across that. So I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about that, what that
Yeah.
looks like and feels like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the when we lost Daphne, the first few weeks, maybe couple of months, we were inundated with love, cards, presents, flowers, gifts, those nice little text messages, all of those things that you get after you lose someone. And then, as whoever you lose in life, everyone who's grieving gets this. There's a point where that stops, and you're expected to, be more together, be more yourself, and move on. And the difference, I think, with baby loss is there's this then shroud around it, this silence, where if you're grieving a person who's had a life, you they still come up in the day to day when you're talking about your fond memories of them. Whereas with baby loss, there are no memories. And people don't want to mention the pregnancy because they see that as that's going to reopen the wound. We've got to close the wound, just tuck it away. We're not going to open that kind of worms. And actually, our babies aren't the trauma. The babies are love. The babies are happiness. The trauma is losing them. And we still have memories of them, whether that's a excited, oh my goodness, we're going to be parents with a pregnancy test, or whether your pregnancy developed further and you got the kicks and the flutters, or whether you'd picked a name, or whether you'd been on holiday with your bump or attended a wedding. These are all memories that are then part of that baby's life. And I think the other thing that breaks baby loss a taboo is there's a kind of misconception that once you have another baby, that baby is the sticking plaster and replaces the baby you've lost. It's like everyone takes that collective sigh out and goes, "Ooh, they've got a baby. We can forget about the bad time. That was the bad bit. That was the storm. We've got the baby. That's it. They're done. Family done. Tick, tick. You've succeeded. Well done." And it's not like that at all, because babies don't replace babies. And I like to think of it a bit like if your grandfather dies, that's very, very tragic. It's awful. If your grandma is lucky enough to meet another man and bring them into your life, they're not coming in as a replacement granddad. No one replaces granddad. This is a new person with a new energy that brings a new type of relationship and a new love into life. They're not a replacement for granddad, they're a new person. And it's the same with a new baby in the family. They're a new person, a new energy, and a new love. So I
Oh,
think this,
beautiful.
yeah. So
Carry
that's
on.
how. No, that's all right. No, I think a big misconception is that once you've got that new baby, that baby that's died is pushed even further away. Your pregnancy journey with the baby you lost is pushed further away. And actually, like you talk about your grandfather, a lot of people who lose babies want to talk about that pregnancy, want to acknowledge that journey, and want to bring that baby into the present in any way that they can. But society doesn't let you. Society says no. Society says go, no, 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 that's done. That's the past. Focus on your child, focus on your work, focus on something else. That's the bad thing, to keep it down. And I think that's where
Okay.
it needs to change.
So what happens when you do break the rule?
What I found, there's two things that happen that is really interesting. The first thing is, if you talk and speak out, even just a little bit, people talk back, and the amount of stories that come flooding back to you are it's overwhelming. So it's like when I put on Facebook about this play group, I expected a handful of replies. Instead, I got over 100. You know, it's of people saying, I wish we'd had this. Oh, I lost a baby. Oh, isn't what a lovely idea. I had a miscarriage. And that would have been really cool to connect with people. Every year on Baby Loss Awareness Week, we do a big ribbon display of all the pink and blue ribbons. And on each ribbon is the name of a baby or a nickname of a baby who has not made it, who has passed away. And it takes a long time to hang all these ribbons up, and I'm very fussy, so I spend ages tying the bows. So I'm there for a long time. And the amount of people walking past that go, oh my goodness, I had a miscarriage 30 years ago, 10 years ago. Yesterday, one woman said to me, I'm still bleeding. People then share with you these things that they push down. And there's tears, there's hugs, there's, are you okay? Do you have the support you need? And from opening up, people can not move on. No one ever moves on from grief, but can move forward in a different way, can move forward feeling I'm not alone. That layer of isolation, and maybe it's my fault. Maybe I ate red meat. Maybe I ate my eggs too raw. Maybe I shouldn't have had that glass of wine, suddenly lifts because someone says, no, 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 it's not your fault. And it's not a doctor saying that. It's not, you late at night Googling. It's people in your community, your new community, saying that's okay. So it brings more people into a more positive state, which after such a tragic thing happening. And I think then the second thing it does is when you open those conversations and break down those taboos, it means that the support is there from the people that should be supporting. You're not relying on baby loss communities and having to build a new community and a new group of friends from scratch. You get to keep your old friends. You get to feel connected to your family. You get to still go to your yoga class. You're not suddenly ostracized from your yoga class because people don't know what to say to you. You're still part of your old life. You're still part of your old community. Your network is still there. And I think that's so important, because there's so many stories that I hear of people who something they used to do before is suddenly inaccessible to them. So
Really? What,
yeah,
like what? I mean, the yoga, that kind of thing, or?
yeah. So
Or
for me, which because I had my son who was a toddler, I used to take him to lots of, toddler classes, nursery rhyme classes, things like that. And then we lost Daphne, and I couldn't face it. And the times that I did go, it was like you were the black sheep, because people didn't know what to say. But you don't know that when you're grieving. You don't know it's because people don't know what to say. You just think, oh my gosh, it's like having a red beacon above your head. You're the dead baby family. You're the dead baby family. You're the dead baby family. And it's only when you reflect back later, you go, they didn't know what to say. And actually, people don't need to say the right thing. They just need to say something.
right. That's right.
and that happens in so many different circumstances. But then there's the flip and the other side when people do say something. So for me, there's a cafe on the road where we live, and during lockdown, cafes and shops were open but nothing else was. You could pop in and get a takeaway coffee. Well, the lady that worked there didn't know her. We just used to pop in and get a coffee because it was one of the only things we could do. And she was waiting, we're pregnant, she's waiting for baby to come. She'd talk to my son, going, "Oh, you're getting a baby. Baby, is it a boy or a girl?" And then I was walking past after we lost Daphne and I didn't go in. And she ran out the cafe and went, "Oi, where have you been? Where have you been? Where's the baby?" And I just shook my head. I just shook my head and I prepared to turn away and just keep walking to the park. And she ran after me and she hugged me and she said, "I don't know what's happened, but I'm so sorry." And I don't know this lady. I don't know her at all. I couldn't, like, at this point, I didn't know her name. She was just the nice lady that worked in the cafe and we spoke through masks and that was it. And it was one of the nicest things that happened in that whole grief process. That acknowledgement. And she kept talking. She kept asking how my son was. And then even after a period of time, Daphne wasn't forgotten. She still mentions her even now. She'll say, "Oh, it was such a rough time." That's all she'd say. She says, "Oh, it was a rough time. Oh, that's awful. I can't believe you went through that." Or, "Oh, this is around
Amazing.
her birthday." And it's little things like you'd remember a grandfather, like you'd remember a father and go, hear a song that they'd like and say, "Oh, that was one of their favorite artists." Or, "Oh, do you remember when we came to the park?" Even though you've not got those markers to remind you, as a friend or as a society, if you can make those markers yourself and just go, "Oh, I know that you had daffodils at the funeral and I saw a daffodil and thought of you. I thought of Daphne." That makes the world feel better because that reminds me that it's not just me remembering them, it's you too. Even though you never met them, even though you never held them, you don't get to see them grow up, it helps. It helps a lot that you are not the only person remembering them and they haven't slipped away into obscurity.
The remembering, the power of the importance of the remembering. I have a friend who is, you're going to have another story here. You must hear them all the time, I'm sure. My friend, Gen X, like me, so she's in her 50s, and she had something where it meant that she miscarried repeatedly. I think 3 times, maybe 4.
Yeah.
She didn't talk about it much in the end. So I don't even know. That's not me not caring. I just even don't
Yeah.
know. And she said to me the other day, I haven't seen her for years, and she said, "My husband thinks I've got trauma." And she said, "I know it's true. I know there's trauma around those babies. I just can't go there. I just can't." And I have never had that conversation with her since, her eldest is 16 and 17. And we've never talked about it. And we don't really see each other very often. But it was just so surprising to me because she's very English. She's quite not withdrawn. She's just quite private. And she's not
Yeah.
really of a generation where we do a lot of talking in public about the stuff that we live with. But even she said, "I know it's there." And she said, "One day I will unpack it. One day I will go there, but it's just not now." And that was that. So, I mean, I will probably be putting her in touch with you, and hopefully we can do a podcast together for my podcast around Baby Loss Awareness Week. Because I really think you're doing something fantastic. And one of the things that I'm thinking about is the way in which historically, so many babies were lost when, medical care wasn't what it is now. And when you go around graveyards, if ever you did that, not that I would, and you see there's someone whose 13 children have died in some awful pandemic. And obviously the care is still a really dangerous thing, having a baby, isn't it? It's still a really dangerous process. And not to scare people, but it's not like a walk in the park. And it is obviously going to be the case that sometimes it's going to happen. It's very normal. And to have something that happens so often that people don't talk about it is really odd. But what I was coming to was, what I think happens is the older generation of women who had to swallow it, and no one's talking about it because another baby's been born, and we named her for the baby that we lost, which I hear a lot about. then you get this thing intergenerationally where a young woman in this day and age is saying, my baby died and I'm devastated. And then grandmothers are having to face the losses that they were not allowed to grieve. And sometimes they do this thing of, well, that happened all the time, dear. It was just normal. And there's this horrible kind of dismissiveness within that generation. I don't think it's malice. I think it's just, I wasn't allowed it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It was the way it was dealt with at the time, because there wasn't the understanding, and there wasn't the backed up, psychological trauma informed science that there is, and the clever people that have studied it to show that that's not healthy. That's not a healthy thing for your body to hold on to, the trauma of it. And so I think it's also that thing where the older generations, because they had to do it that way, and that was the only choice. There was no choice to talk about it. You had to suck it up and get through, or you ran away, you sad, or you committed suicide. There's a lot of documented suicides around, loss as well,
Really? Okay.
in the olden days. And I think it's because medal but I think it there there's a family that I work with where the the granddaughter lost her baby, and her mother was present at the birth. And then the mother turned to the grandmother and said, it was awful, it was traumatic for seeing this happen to my own child, and to see my grandchild there dead, and we spent time and we made footprints and all the usual things. And the grandmother turned around and went, well, I had a stillbirth and it didn't affect me. And it's that's the wall they had to put up, because it was the only way to do it. That was the only way society said, and that wall is going to stay up. And I think that's fine if that's how they need to cope with that. Because at age 80, 90, maybe this isn't the time to unpack it, if that's not going to be helpful to you.
Maybe
And
at 80
maybe,
and 90, it's the first time you've ever said it out loud.
yeah,
Sometimes. I mean, I think that must happen as well, that people, it's just never said, nothing is ever said. And that has got to be a beautiful cultural shift. That has got to be one of the
yeah.
most beautiful things that you're doing. Do you have any connection at all with baby loss around? I recently, it was probably yesterday, or was it even this morning? Yesterday, I spoke to a woman who's doing a talk called Paula, who is focusing on migration and death, and what do we do with mourning people who die in transit, in war, in refugees,
Yeah.
people that are asylum seeking and they die in no man's land, or they never are found, and all of the things like that. As you're talking on, hot on the heels of that conversation, I'm thinking there must be so much baby loss there that is just not even acknowledged or known about. Do you have any connection with that field of work?
Um, so, as far as baby loss that's unknown, I think there's a lot of families I work with where there wasn't, either because the pregnancy was early or maybe surgery was involved, where or hospitals, it not being their policy, didn't get to spend time even with their baby, or see what their baby looked like. No matter how early, you can still see a baby if you want to, who then go on to make their own ways to remember. And I know some families that have memorials and funerals, that style of, you know even without anything to bury, they'll come round a tree, or they'll plant a tree, or they'll come together to do something. A lot of families as well, they do what I call like ongoing memory making. Um, so for example, uh, a friend of mine, her daughter's flower is the sunflower. Like, it's what's always reminds her of her daughter. And so sunflowers remind her of her. But then she found a t-shirt I think it was in a charity show. It was something. She found a secondhand t-shirt with Tommy's written on, the baby loss charity, the baby health charity, and it was a running t-shirt, and she saw that as a sign that she had to run the London Marathon for Tommy's and raise money for Tommy's. So she did it, and suddenly the marathon is a memory connected to her daughter, and that's a whole new memory that's made. And so running is a thing that's connected to her daughter, and I think that's what people do to fill in the gaps where you've not got memories to fall back on, or you've not got, you know, a body to fall back on to go through the rituals. You fall into creating those rituals and creating those things yourself because you have to, and that's a way to honor, and that's a way to process what you're feeling, and also that innate feeling that you still want to parent them. So raising money for a charity help makes you feel like you're still looking after them. You're still parenting them in your own
Oh,
way.
really? Wow. This is fascinating. So people are continuing to have relationships with their babies and
Yeah.
continuing to care for them.
Yeah. And it's obviously not caring for them like you would a baby. And it's different for every person. But I know for me, for example, Daphne is always a baby. I know she said she should be 4, but I don't feel like she's ever grown up. She's stuck as that newborn baby for me. She's always going to be that newborn little baby. That's the only image of her I have. I can't even imagine her growing up. Whereas I know some of the people I work with, their baby gets older every year and they know the milestones. So they know my daughter should be starting school this year. My daughter should be doing this. My daughter would be learning to ride a bike around now. And they benchmark those growing up milestones. And then at those milestones, they grieve again. It opens it all up. So everyone grieves in very different ways, um, depending on how they're wired, and everyone grieves differently.
I'd love to ask you a question here about people who identify as men and people who identify as fathers. I'm imagining that they're also very much left out of the conversation and maybe even unacknowledged, but that's my perception. Are you able to tell me a little bit about how, if you're a dad and you're listening to this,
Yeah.
where would I go if I was a dad?
So yeah, fathers are the focus is always on the mother because she's the one who has carried the baby. She's the one that's had to birth the baby in whatever form that has taken, whether, whether that's miscarrying, bleeding, labor, surgery, whatever it is, they've had to release that baby. And so I think a natural instinct of a partner is to care for the person they love, and they take on this caring mantle. And when I said, when everything dies down and the flowers, the cards and things die down, and the grief stops being as raw and in your face, it hits the fathers then again as a new wave because their role is gone. So not only are they grieving, but their role as protector, their role of holding that their loved one and helping them through their recovery, their pain, their physical trauma has also gone. And there's a lot of families that struggle when mum and dad grieve differently. Say mum wants to talk and go to support groups and dad wants to just throw himself into work and they don't connect. That can cause a lot of heartache and a lot of additional trauma on top of the trauma that they're going through as a family, losing that baby. And the support for men is patchy. The support generally across the country is patchy, but the support for men is even patchier. But there are groups out there, and I think that's one of the wonderful things about the internet is you don't have to leave the comfort of your chair to find people if you want it. But I think the struggle is men proactively finding that help. That's a big barrier to accessing that help, and I think there's a real need in the community to try and up the game a little bit, to try and support men and meet men where they're at rather than expecting them to come and join what a woman would find supportive.
Or
So
what
for
traditionally female space, perhaps?
exactly, women are very good at, in general, this is very broad brushstrokes, but
Yeah,
can
given.
can step into that emotional space and connect with other women in a very open way talking, or if they don't want to talk, they can feel the presence of other women around them and that energy. And I think men struggle with that. Um, but that's where, yeah, you meet them where they're at. So we have a darts team, for example, the Daphne and Friends Dad Darts team. If anyone wants to join, members welcome to join. And they meet once a month and they play darts in the back room of a pub. And the main focus is on playing darts. And the only
Yeah.
difference is that everyone on that team has experienced the loss of a pregnancy, baby, or child. Now, it's up to them whether they talk between games or whether they just want to enjoy the relief of being in the presence of guys that get it. It opens that space up and is a sensitive, caring space for them where they don't have to think, oh, I'm going to sit in a circle. Oh, I'm going to have to tell my story. Oh, I'm going to have to. It puts it back on their terms, and it's a really lovely little community of men that come to our darts team. There's other things going on. SANS, the national charity, have a football club, SANS United, and they're dotted all over the country. I know there's one in Essex. I can't even think where the other ones are, but they're for, if you've got sporty dads, you can join those, and they train, they wear their babies' names on their shirts as well, their football shirts. And again, it's that thing of there's an activity, there's a thing to connect over, and you all just happen to be bereaved as well. So it's meeting men at that level, I think, is really helpful, and providing those spaces to talk.
There's so many questions. I'm really hoping you'll come back and chat with me, because I'm thinking as well about gay couples where they've had a surrogate and what happens there. And then it's quite a complex picture in terms of gender and, oh goodness me, there's a lot. I'm thinking as well whether there's anywhere in the world that does this well. Do you have any data?
Ooh, that's a question. I think it's one of those things where every, and like, first world country, there's countries that are doing it better, and there's countries that are doing it less well. But where one country is excelling in one area, so for example, in Scotland, to pick somewhere very close to home, they've had to bring in the national bereavement pathway. They've made it mandatory to bring that in all hospitals. It's not mandatory in England and Wales. And they've had an increase in good bereavement care and good feedback from hospitals. So that's a hospital bereavement service. But why they're really good at that, there are less on the ground support groups, like grassroots ones, to go once you leave the hospital. So where one country is doing it really, really good, they'll be pulling back in another area. And I think it's all about sharing. The more we share, the more we look at what works and what doesn't work. It fills my heart with joy when I see like someone's copying our ideas somewhere else. Like I know there's another darts team popped up in a different area, I've noticed, and I'm like, good, I'm so pleased. That is so good that you're taking that and you're running with that idea. And I know that I've looked at American support services and gone, what a good idea. I hadn't even thought of that. Let's adopt that and tell the person they are brilliant for thinking of that. And let's connect and unite and work together,
I
because we've all,
feel like they're probably quite good in some parts of the States, I think.
yeah,
But
I,
I've had a really amazing conversation with some Americans this week, and they're just really on it with grief somehow.
yeah, I
What were you
think
going to say?
baby loss in America, though, I think there's a very, without getting political, there's lots of things around abortion and baby loss as well, though. So there's a very grey area where we shall not tread today, but
We shall
that's where,
not, but it's so right. Yeah,
because
yeah.
some some families in the UK who experience baby loss, they have to have a termination. It's part of, maybe their baby is sick, maybe their baby hasn't got a brain, and they choose to terminate that baby for medical reasons, which is baby loss. They wanted that baby. It's a loved, wanted baby. And in America, in some states in America, they will not be able to do that, and they have to carry a baby to term. So I think in America, they're doing some amazing things with grief and bereavement. But with baby loss, there are so many grey, nuanced areas depending on what state. I think it's very different landscape.
I mean, are you doing academic research around this, or is this just you have filled your brain with
No,
it because you went looking?
I'm just looking. I eat, live, breathe everything. I talk to a lot of people. I try to attend as many things as I can. I think the more knowledge we have and the more we share, the better everything is for everyone, really.
And that's the whole point of what you're doing. How is it funded, your organization?
So we at the moment we have a small amount of grant funding. We rely
Mhm.
on donations as well, but we also we have just launched our training workshops, and there's more and more coming online as we speak.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
so our first two have been for antenatal practitioners, anyone that works with anyone in the pregnancy world, whether you're an antenatal teacher, a doula, a hypnobirthing instructor, a pregnancy yoga person. It's for you and how you can support your clients should they lose a baby, while they're with you. One for people that work with young families, newborn babies as well. And we are just about to go live with our one for celebrants, which isn't teaching celebrants how to write, because you are the best creative people. You know your style, and a funeral director wouldn't match you with a family if they didn't love your creative style. But it
They
does fill
would.
you in.
No, they would, actually. They would
That's
they
very
would
true.
they would. And they would put you with them because you were free, or not put you with them because you weren't free.
Yeah, true.
It's a
But I
whole other
think
thing.
that's very true. But at the same time, I'm not telling celebrants how to do their
Get
creative job,
you.
because you've done your training, you've got your experience, whatever it is. But I think there are some fundamental things which are different, which
Yeah.
if you know those, you can then apply those to your ceremony and what and to your
Amazing.
family. So that is about to launch as well. And then we're going to be launching some corporate workshops as well. So if anyone's in the
Fantastic.
corporate world, we can help.
Oh, right. Well, let's leave it there because it's a lot to absorb and a lot for you to share. I know that they can find you Instagram, and it's Daphne and Friends CIC is what you're
Yeah.
looking for. And you've got a website too, I saw,
Yes,
I think,
yeah.
which is
daphneandfriends.org.
daphneandfriends.org.
Yeah,
And you're looking for Poppy Walker.
yes.
Poppy Walker knows all things, I feel. So, this Saturday the 15th, 11:15 in the morning, Greenwich Mean Time. If you want international time zones, look on the programme. You can buy tickets from Ticket Tailor, and it's called Tiny Lives, Big Impact, changing the way we talk about, respond to, and honour baby loss. It will be more of this, but it will be more detailed, and it will give you tools, and it will just give you awareness, and it will just make you aware of what isn't happening, what you could be doing better, all the things, and just giving people an opportunity to open that conversation. Does that tie it up? I missed
Perfect.
anything out?
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, good. Well, I'm very, very, very grateful for your time and for sharing everything and being so generous with your experience. I think it's beautiful, and I think what you're doing is really quite astonishing and wonderful, and obviously a great testament to Daphne.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me on as well. It's been so nice to meet you and to chat.
Oh, you're welcome. Let's stop the recording. Bye, everybody.